All right. Welcome. What the? I slip up immediately. Yeah, that's great. That's why we pre-record.
Take two.
Take two. All right. Welcoming to the show, DJ Danny Myers and Ilan Fong from the What's Hot in the Strip Clubs podcast. Work along with Bob Chiappardi, who is kind of a legend in the hard rock circles with the Foundations Forum and Concrete Marketing and all that good stuff. And I remember I think it was a couple of years ago that my friend David Hooper had told me, Bob's living in Nashville now.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, what's he doing now? He's like, he works on music for strip clubs. And I was like, what? And he's like, and although coming from a rock and roll world, it just makes total sense, And then, David had talked to me about you guys. And then also I'd noticed you guys are also on Pantheon because Decibel Geek's on Pantheon. You guys are on Pantheon. I think eventually Pantheon's going to own every music podcast there is. But it's been a blast kind of getting familiar with all these shows that are on the network. And it's just, when I started podcasting in 2011, and it was pretty limited about what was, music podcasting, especially. It was very, narrow. But just to see how much it's exploded and how many different ways that people are utilizing it to build their brand and work on stuff. And that's part of why I wanted to have you guys come on here, because typically I'm a rock nerd. I just want to talk about the bands, and it's not really so much means to an end, although rock and pod kind of become that. Sure. But also there's a lot of people that I think have taken the template that comedians have used, where it's like, there's no better commercial for what I go out and do than a podcast. So, and I think that kind of applies to you guys, because you both are DJs and you worked in the adult industry, and it's just it's a little left field for what I usually cover with my show, but not that different really. And I have checked out your stuff. Ilan, I have a little bit of a problem with you confessing that you're a Nickelback fan, but we'll get to that another time. But
that
long inside joke. But anyway, I actually kind of like the new song, but yeah. But it's just, I wanted to get a little backstory on you guys. So how do you guys meet to start this whole thing off?
Danny, why don't you start?
How did we meet? Actually through our organization PANDA, which is a Professional Adult Nightclub DJ Association. We were at one of our conventions out in the Expo out in Las Vegas, and Ilan and I, he's up in Columbus, Ohio. I'm in Cincinnati, so we're only a couple hours apart. So I got a chance. He messaged me, said, I want to meet you for lunch. I got some ideas. And at the time, I was on the PANDA board of directors, and eventually Ilan joined the PANDA board of directors. So we ended up, I guess, just having a really good connection and becoming very good friends as well.
Yeah. So that was back in 2014. And I know I'd already been DJing for, do the math, 18 years. You know what I mean? I started DJing in 95. Danny had been DJing for 25, 30 years by that point. And so we had a lot of experience with DJing. And, the interesting thing is two things before I get to the PANDA connection is, rock and strip clubs go very much hand in hand, especially back in the 90s when I started. I've met so many rock stars and athletes over the years in my clubs, everyone from Roger Waters to Limp Bizkit to Guns N' Roses to blah, 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 Dennis Rodman, all over the place, right? Every genre of music we've kind of met. And now rock has become less prominent, obviously, in commercial radio as well as strip clubs because of that. And then PANDA, when I went out to the Expo and met Danny, he was the first one to really, welcome me and all that. And I eventually, like you said, became a PANDA board of directors. But I came out of Expo being really hungry and passionate about the industry for the first time in years. And it really made me want to say, well, what can we bring to the DJs, right? And so, soon afterwards, Dan said, hey, we have an opening on the board. Would you consider running for the board? And I'm like, yeah, here's a way I can affect a big change. And so by this point, I became a board member 2015, late 2014. Danny, I believe, had already started the podcast, right?
Yes.
Okay, so he was doing it with Ron Sparkman, Ron James, and Sean Loveless, the PANDA Top 20. And Sean was the original chart doctor, they called him, I think, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And they had started some other remix shows, and sort of what germinated and became PANDA Off the Charts, which is our show where Bob Chiappardi brings an artist who we interview. They drop their new song, and we bring, each host brings 3 songs we think you may not know about that you should be paying in strip clubs. So that's a new music show. Right. And I was a fan of both those shows. I was not involved yet, so I'll let Danny pick up the thread from there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, yeah, we started that, like I said, back in 13, 14, around in there. It started off just being a way for us to share music. Sean Lovelace, who we said was our chart doctor, it just started off as a Facebook thing. He said, "Tell me what songs you're playing." And people would send him the messages. Bob Chiappardi's with us.
Hey,
Hey,
Bob.
Started sending
Hey
it.
guys, sorry about that.
Sorry.
So he started sending, sending out messages saying, "Hey, tell me what you guys are playing." And then he started this chart. It was just the Panda Top 10 at the time. Then eventually, when I got on there, I said, "Let's turn this into a podcast. Let's play little snippets of the song." So that evolved, and then over the years, both my first two partners, Ron and Sean, both left the show. Ilan was kind enough to join us, and that's how we started. We got started doing the Panda Top 20 together with Ilan. So. The other podcast is the Off the Charts podcast, as he was saying, and Bob Chiappardi, who just joined us here, he's the one who gets our guests for us.
There you go. Corralling them in.
See now, and I don't know if this is gonna be on video, but if you if it's just audio, oh, it is okay. Then you see all the platinum records behind Bob. So that explains how he gets the guests.
Yeah, I was gonna say nobody better at herding cats than Bob Chiappardi. You have a lot of experience.
Yes, it's good. It's good work these days. I just got hired on a TV show, and that's what I'm doing. I'm herding cats. You know, it's
That's awesome. Well, let me tell you about Bob, everybody. First of all, he's a legend in the music industry as a promoter, a record producer, A&R guy. And then, of course, he did Foundations Forum and Concrete Marketing in the 90s. All you metalheads out there know all about that. But let me also tell you, he's a guy who inspires me and Danny because, like Danny, they never stop learning, right? So, Bob has gone out of his way to not just stick with his roots and no rock, but he's bringing us artists from hip hop and pop and EDM and, all over the spectrum. He's all about music. Right. And so, but that takes a lot, you gotta pivot in the new world of music and streaming and all that stuff. And he's done so very successfully. So, mad props to him to getting the artists we do from like Major Lazer. I know maybe a lot of your listeners don't know some of these names, but they're really big in the pop and EDM worlds and hip hop worlds. We've done world premieres with Major Lazer, who had Nicki Minaj on the track, who's a huge hip hop crossover star. So he's making it relevant not only in rock and metal. We've also had Bush on and Megadeth and Buck Cherry and all these great baby rock bands like the Penny Billionaires and on and on and on and on, and other bands who become stars after being on our show, not because of us, but I'd like to think we contributed a little
without
bit.
Without a doubt.
One of my favorite ones before you joined us, Ilan, we had Steel Panther.
Yes.
We had Sticks It In Ya. Yeah, Sticks It In Ya. That was the drummer, and of course Lexi Fox, the bass player, who's not with the band anymore. But that was one of our more fun interviews.
Yeah, well, if there's a band tailor-made for strip club music, it's Steel Panther.
And I knew the singer from his Atomic Punks days. So
Ralph.
I lived on the West Coast. Yeah, Ralph. Yeah, great guy, really nice guy too.
Yeah, he does David Lee Roth better than David Lee Roth these days.
Anymore for sure. Has for decades.
Well, so Bob, thanks for joining us. I'm glad you could be a part of this too. So
Thank you for having me. It's
a
pleasure doing with these guys. I mean, we had so much fun. Been doing it. How many years have we been doing it now, Dan?
Off the Charts. We started in 15 I think 2015.
And I've been doing it for 6 years. So I came in the second year.
Yeah. I think you joined us when we started. It started off just being Ron, Sean, and I.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started bringing Bob on. Then Bob started bringing guests on and that. So we had it started a little bit before Bob. But Bob, I mean, when he started bringing the guests on, I think our second guest that he ever got us was Scooter Ward from Cold.
Yeah.
And I think that still is our record highest number of listens on a show that we've ever had.
And you know why that is? It's because Scooter shared the show with his fans. Artists, help us out. Share the show, please.
The struggle is always real when it comes to that. I'll tell you. I've done interviews where the guest has had an amazing time and we've just laughed it up for 2 hours. And then I'm like, surely they're going to share this. Nope.
Wah, wah.
They just move on to the next one.
Got to apply their assistant with booze or something. I don't know. We got
to. Well, one thing that helped me was I try to tell the artist, I'm like, as a podcaster, I'm like a struggling band, so I need all the help I can get too. So please reciprocate and share the episode. It's going to be nothing but good for you. You get it out there to more people.
Right.
I'm writing that note down to myself. So
exactly.
I don't have a tip jar. I gotta get shared. That's the best thing I can do.
Yeah, please share.
Yeah.
Sharing is caring.
We have what's called funny money. You know, it's
Right.
thing.
But it's cool that it's Bob, it's cool that you transitioned into this side of things, because I mean it's not that different really from what you did back in the concrete days. It's just we're different with technology now. It's just a different delivery system, right?
Well, what this has been, the way I've kind of built my business is really filling niches. You know, there's things that were missing, you know, and it started, I mean, I got into hard rock and heavy metal because nobody was doing it. And somebody had a record and said, I got this record. I really I need somebody. Can you do it? And I always say yes. And I figure it out because none of this, at the end of the day, none of this stuff is brain surgery, you know? And,
right.
and so it's more sweat and more just thinking. It's like, I don't have to know everything, especially when I got guys like these, you know, working with. It's like, I don't have to know everything. I just know guys that do know stuff, and you get enough guys around you that know enough stuff, you can conquer the world. So it's been easy. And strip joints happen because you know, client calls me up and says, "Oh, I got this song to be great in the strip clubs. Do you know how to do that?" And I said, "Yeah." and then I sat down and I thought, I hung up the phone and I go, "Oh, I know Don Waite." And he's got and I know him back from the day when he had Performance Magazine and he was in the music industry. Right. So I called him up, and next thing you know, we set it all up. And then the next thing you know, we're doing it every month. So that's the type of way I do it. So, and Bob, learning new stuff just comes from filling in holes of where things are needed.
Bob does not give himself enough credit. Yeah, he's great at networking and getting the right people together, and he's a great outside the box idea guy. And that's so important if you're going to keep pivoting. Is, you know, the music industry is changing so quickly over the last 10, 15 years. It's crazy. I do some music promotion as well now on the side, and it's nuts what I'm learning and picking up. And I pick Bob's brain, and but he's so good at working with the artists and their management too, which is important because you got to have the trust of the artist. You know, as an interviewer, you know, you spend the first couple of minutes, maybe even before you start taping, creating that trust so they open up to you, right? It's you have to. Bob is just so great at it, and Danny too. Danny, I got to give mad props to my partner Danny, because he's all self-taught, like the podcasting, the technology, the recording, the sharing, the uploading. You know, he makes it easy for me to just get on the show and do what I do, and I'm trying to continue to learn so I can add to what I can help him with. But you know, he taught him all by himself. So I give him so much respect and credit for what we do, because Danny's the one who learned it, you know?
Yeah. Thank you.
And it's, you know, and with podcasting in general, especially with music podcasting these days, it's like, you know, the mainstream rock press, the mainstream media, you know, it's pretty much hip hop. I mean, it was first like rock stuff. We've almost kind of gone underground. Like we've gone full circle back to the days of fanzines and stuff like that. It's just, it's basically an audio fanzine is what I do for my show. It's just a way of putting a spotlight on. And yeah, we put out a White Lion episode this week. So, I mean, that there's nothing new about White Lion, but we love talking about them. But at the same time, then we'll do an episode called Fresh Blood. It's all unsigned bands that have cool stuff that isn't getting the attention that it deserves. And, you know, there's so many, it's almost too much of a megaphone for all these different directions for bands. If I'm in a band right now trying to start out, I'm like, and where do I start from? Because there's almost too much of an opportunity now to distribute your stuff. Right. And you're not even focusing your time on making the best music you can make, because you're doing TikTok videos and all, because it's all encompassing now. And I've noticed that with Heritage Acts. I have a friend, Nick Teeter from Frontiers Records, you know, and he works with a lot of the older bands from the 80s, and I'm not going to name the band, but the singer for the band was like, well, we turned in the album, you do all the work. And he goes, no, it's not how it works anymore. He's like, you have to do video content. You have to update your social media regularly. Yep. You have to be your own marketing department now. And you have to go on podcast, and you've got to, and they're like, oh, the podcasts don't have as big of an audience. It's like, yeah, but if you do 30 podcasts, it adds up to a lot more people. Yep. And he didn't want to do it. He's like, it's like the old days. I just want to turn the record in and go on tour. And he's like, it doesn't work like that no more. You have to roll with the changes, and you have to be your biggest advocate now to make it. Don't you think?
Absolutely. You know, there's no outlet for rock in the mainstream anymore. They have much smaller audiences. The few classic rock stations aren't adding new music. I had this debate with the QFM 96 guys here in Columbus when I was doing commercials for my club. I got to know the engineer and the director pretty good. And I said, look, man, the Slash solo record had just come out, and Going to California is a great track. It sounds like a Guns N' Roses song. It had Miles Kennedy on vocals, all that stuff. And I'm like, why aren't you playing this song? It fits right in. It's not like some of his newer stuff is more edgy, so I get it. But he had plenty of tracks that had that classic Guns N' Roses sound. And I'm like, or when Van Halen came out with the new stuff, they played My Tattoo maybe for a week, and that was it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, and there's so many legacy artists that are coming out with really good records, but the classic rock stations won't grab them, and they're too old school sounding for the new rock stations. And so it was pretty wild to me. But Bob, you know, one thing I know the story a little bit, but I'm not sure. Now you connected us with Pantheon, right? The Pantheon Network,
Right.
and who was your connection there? How did you get us involved with that, or how did?
That was
Dick.
The CFO, right?
Dick Wingate, who I think is a consultant there.
Okay.
And his job is to business development, bring more new podcasts in. And he gave me a call, and what do you call it? And I said, well, ironically, I have a podcast for you. And that was it, you know?
Yeah. Relationships. I mean, they kind of mean everything for all these types of connections, you know?
Yeah, that's the whole thing. That's, it's interesting. The new guard of music industry, and this is probably true for most industries, is they don't understand the value of relationships, and they don't understand the value of developing relationships. Everything is quick. Everything is like, you know, texts and everything, you know, and they don't know how to communicate. I mean, I sound like an old grumpy man, which I probably am, but
we all are. Don't worry.
You know, and then, you know, they can't get stuff done that needs to get done. I mean,
right.
You got to be able to make that phone call. You got to have that home, what do you call it, cell number that, you know, that you can call somebody and say, hey, dude, I'm calling in a favor.
Absolutely. And shout out to Christian Swain and Peter Frioli, I think it is, right? The last name, if I'm saying that
Frioli.
right.
How
okay, there we go.
How do you pronounce Peter's last name?
Farioli.
Farioli.
I've never known.
Me neither.
Yeah, I've seen it written, but I've never known. Yeah, they've been amazing to us. We started with the Pantheon Network back. We started our conversations last November. I think we actually started going live with them around the first part of December. And it's just been a blast. I mean, they've been so good to us in teaching us how to do things and being patient with us because we were new at it. And I mean, they are so busy because I mean, this Pantheon Network, they've got like 100 shows.
Yeah.
So they're dealing with 100 different show hosts, you know, in a month. And, you know, I mean, but they're really good, quick about getting back to you and helping us out. And I mean, we've been enjoying this ride so much. And every month we watch the numbers go up and up and up and, you know, stuff like that. So they've been amazing to us. I love those guys over Pantheon.
Yeah, they came to me. I guess we started it'll be 2 years in November, I believe, for us.
Okay.
And at the time, I think there was 40 shows at the time. So it's grown exponentially since then. But I remember having a call with them, and you know, they're just as insane as I am about wanting to, you know, not just do your show, but do bigger and bigger and bigger, and you know, shoot for the stars and everything. And I was just kind of like, I think I found my people, and I just I love their ambition about stuff. You know, they're never afraid to put themselves out there and just try to get a big guest or try to get a big thing. They landed the deal with Roger Daltrey. I mean, they're really cooking, and I'm proud to be a part of that network. It's there was networks around before that, but I've never seen one that is so serious and driven as those guys are. And it's been great to be a part of that network for sure.
I got to say, they've been super supportive. You know, we're trying to find our niche within the niche, right? Because we're not just rock. The majority of our shows have EDM and hip hop focused stuff. Right. And so, you know, we do break a lot of baby bands, and occasionally we get a legacy band, but it's been interesting as Danny and I think about things and navigate it and how we promote, to find our space within the network. I know we're very different than a lot of the other shows because of that. And we want to certainly get your listeners and the other shows listeners maybe to open their ear and give us a chance. And we'd love to do the same for you, you know, all the other podcasts as well. It's about finding that balance. To me, that's why we focus on, you know, it's about the music. Yeah, do we tell stories about strip clubs a little bit? Sure, of course, but it's really about, if you're a music fan, there's great songs of every genre. You know what I mean? It really is. And I would encourage everyone to open up their ears and not be closed-minded about stuff. If you're a rock guy, I get it. I started as a rock singer and played in bands and sang in bands and all that stuff. And I'm still rock, soul, blues first, but I've definitely learned to love, EDM's my other big passion, but I still love hip hop and, everything else as well.
Yeah. Well, where do you guys go to discover new music? Is there a particular method you use to find the stuff? Because for us, we dig through multiple different places.
Mm-hmm.
My main place is Spotify. I probably listen to not the whole song, but I skate through probably 500 songs every Friday.
Wow.
In like a good 3 hours.
Whew.
Just going through songs. Now I have it's a business reason for me,
sure,
but I'm listening to everything. But I guess all the new music, New Music Friday, New Music Latin Friday, just they go on and on, new dance beats, all the different playlists that are playing that are featuring new music, and I'm looking for songs that'll work well in strip clubs.
Sure.
Then my MO is I figure out those songs. Usually I get a list about 50 songs out of the 500 I'm listening to that I feel would work well in a strip club. And then if they're major labels or, big independent labels that I've worked with in the past, I'll reach out to them because I know the contacts. And if it's an independent band that's putting out their own stuff, then my assistant will go and he'll research the band up through Facebook or Instagram, reach out to them and just let them know about our service and see if they're interested.
Right.
So that's how I wind up just for business reasons, listening to a lot of, new music.
Well, and I'll do the same thing kind of with Spotify because I'll listen to something that of a band I know and like or whatever, a new thing. But I also notice if you just hit play and just let it roll, it'll start suggesting stuff to you. And I've found stuff. It's like a roulette wheel, and I've found some great stuff that way where I just have it on the background. I'll just let it roll through, and it'll end up playing something. I'm like, I've never heard that before. That's great. It's a great feature.
Yeah, I'm not as much into following the Spotify as much as my main sources are our Facebook group that we have for Panda. There's a lot of guys that always, put in songs that they found, and it's really good. Plus, I'm a member of several record pools that I join, that I pay a monthly fee to. And I just kind of check and see what all the new stuff that's coming out there. But I think really lately, and I can only say this, I've been DJing in the adult club industry since '96. I've been DJing actually since '75, but I've been in the adult club since '96, and more, it's the entertainers that tell me about the songs, because the entertainers are the ones that are living on TikTok, and they're seeing these songs and they're bringing them to us. The only problem I have with the music today is how short it is, because these songs are getting shorter and shorter, and the problem for our business is. We basically sell lap dances, couch dances, whatever you want to call, and they go by the song. So in other words, you maybe get 2 songs for this much money or 1 song for this much money. And these songs are coming out at 2 minutes, and all of a sudden the customer feels like he's getting screwed, and he actually is.
And go ahead. It's based on a 3-minute song.
Yeah. So basically what I have to do is go into my SoundForge or something and take the 2-minute song, loop a chorus a couple of times, and make the song. I mean, it's almost like I have to do this to too many songs. The smart bands are coming out with extended remixes and things like that they're just already doing that off the master. But yeah, these 2-minute songs are killing us.
Yeah, I second that. I get a lot of my music from the record pools. So for those of you who aren't DJs, record pools are professional services that have relationships with the many record labels around the world. And then they have it all. They get the tracks all for one spot. You pay a monthly fee and you can download as many of them as you want. A lot of them have limits. Some of them are unlimited. And some of them keep a library of 100,000 songs. They'll do redrums of classic rock songs. They'll have new rock, country, Latin, like every genre is covered. So a lot of music was found there. And then for me personally, I always wanted to have my own sound for my club. So I would go down the YouTube, more the SoundCloud rabbit hole, and I'd find our remix artists I liked, and then I'd go to their page and see if they'd done any cover or remixes of classic songs, whether it be rock or pop or whatever. And then if I liked their, label remix, then I'd find their bootleg remixes. And that way I had stuff other people didn't have. And I'm the guy who'll go down the rabbit hole for hours to find that one great Beatles remix. listen to 500 crappy ones to find the good one. And then I'll play in my club. Everyone's like, oh my God, is it the Beatles? Like, you know, and so that's one way. And then the other is there's blogs. Also, even like Rolling Stone and Billboard will have articles about somebody or a remix artist or new up and coming artist, and I'll go find them. And same with music blogs. You'll find a lot of good unreleased tracks or up and coming stuff before it hits the mainstream that you can play. So that's how I found. And Danny will attest to this. You spend, you know, I worked DJ 30 hours a week, but then I'd spend 10, 15 hours a week curating and finding new music.
Oh, sure.
And the one negative to that is, I will say, like Bob, you tend to, okay, listen to the intro, 5 seconds, hit the verse for 5 seconds, hit the chorus. If it hasn't grabbed it, I go on. And I know what the sound was from my club, so I had an ear developed for that, right? But sadly, as a guy who loves music, I rarely listen to music for pleasure now. I'm so used to listening to that for as a purpose. The only time I listen to music for pleasure is usually on a long drive.
I don't turn my radio on in my car.
Yeah.
What I do, I love making personal playlists. You know, this is nothing to do with business. So just, and I you know, back in the day, I used to make mixtapes and mix CDs and all that. And I had my systems all up, and I like to put together playlists by mood or tempo.
Okay.
So, you know, every now and then I'll do it by an artist, but for the most part, I'm sticking to a tempo, you know, late night type of vibe, or a jazz or a blues type of vibe. And then what I find, you know, I find I'm discovering music is once you put together 15, 20 songs, then Spotify will start suggesting stuff. And then I'll scoot down and I'll go through like 20 pages of their thing, and all of a sudden I'll see a song by an artist I know that I never heard, or I'll see an artist that I never heard of. And especially when you're doing, you know, more classic stuff. Like I just started last night. I went to an event. We're working on Brandy Carlisle, and I got invited to an event here in Franklin. She did a live broadcast from Laurel Canyon.
Cool.
All right. And her album was, you know, all about Laurel Canyon and that whole scene. Joni Mitchell,
songwriter stuff, right?
Mamas and the Papas. We go, you know, Crosby, Stills and Nash, things like that. Yeah. And so it was getting towards the end of the show, and I just started. I got on my phone and I just did Laurel Canyon. And I started going to playlists and seeing songs on other people's playlists and pulling songs that I liked.
Sure.
And then next thing you know, after my place, I'm coming up with bands that I from the 60s I never even heard of. Their songs. So it's the beautiful thing about the whole digital thing now, the streaming, is that it's so easy to discover great music. You just got to put a little time in, and there's so many ways of discovering great music you never heard before.
Yeah, that's what cracks me up with, you know, there's people that they're not really into the podcasting thing or whatever, that are like people I grew up with. And they're like, oh man, I just don't know where to find any good music these days. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Like it's never been easier to find music. Yeah, back in the day, I mean, I remember going to the record store and, you know, buying 10 cassette tapes just because the cover looked cool. But having no idea what I was going to hear when I played it, you know, and sometimes out of those 10 tapes I would buy, 2 would be good. You know, now you can sample anything you want, but always, if you like it enough, buy it. You know, the artists need the money.
Support them.
Yeah. My friend, my best buddy and I, we were in high school working at an international house of pancakes, washing dishes and bussing tables. And we take our whole paycheck, and the record store is still there in West Babylon, Looney Tunes.
Oh, wow.
And we would go there and we would blow our entire paychecks on music, you know, on our bicycles, and we bring home all these finds, and we had an arrangement that we would coordinate what we bought. All right, you're going to get the new Elton John record. I'll get the new whatever record, you know, Led Zeppelin record, and then we would swap. We would tape each other's music, right? And that's how we pretty cool. Did it.
And just for you younger listeners, International House of Pancakes is IHOP. But
That's true.
I used to find once I started DJing, we had a Virgin Records here in Columbus for a couple years, and I would buy so much every week because releases were on Tuesdays back then, I think, right?
Yeah, that's I think pretty much always been Tuesdays. Yeah,
and so I would have a stack of CDs and DVDs, and then they also had their single section and import section. So I would have I would spend at least $200 a week. And I got to the point where the manager knew me and I spent so much money. He gave me like 20% off every time I came in.
That reminds me of, it's not related to an album, but I grew up a big Kiss nerd. I'd go to this Xanadu video store here in Bellevue, and they had the Kiss Animalize live uncensored home video concert for them playing in Detroit in '84. No makeup, right. But I'd just gotten into the band. And every Friday, my parents would take me to the video store, and without fail, I would rent this video. And I mean, I'm talking for 3 months, every Friday, I rented that video, would watch it through the weekend, and have to return it. After about 3 months of this, I show up one Friday, and the guy just hands it to me. He goes, "Nobody else is renting this. Just keep it."
That's awesome.
He's like, he said, "You've more than paid it off already."
That's what kills me about YouTube, man. I spent decades collecting. I have all these VHS bootlegs of live concerts, all my favorite bands, and now it's all on YouTube. Yeah. I spent so much money collecting them, and they're still upstairs. Oh man, it kills me.
Although I did shell out $20 for the Eagles, the history of the Eagles documentary the other day.
Good, dude.
I watched it on HBO. You can't find it streaming anymore. I was like, I have to own it now because I love watching it. Yeah, it's just incredible. But yeah, I wanted to make this quick, but we'll talk about the show a little bit. So, you guys have been doing the show for quite a while now. And I do like that you mix it up. It's not the same thing every single week. That keeps it fresh for my show too. If I had to do the same thing every week, I would lose my mind. But what's on the horizon for you guys? Is there anything in particular that you're working on or side casts or anything like that?
Yeah. Well, the channel name is What's Hot in the Strip Clubs. The website, of course, is what'shotitsc.com. And the shows that you're talking about, we have the Panda Top 20, which is the one that Ilan gets all the strip club DJs to, like the hat. Ilan gets all the strip club DJs to send him their playlist. And so he puts together the Panda Top 20. And then we do that podcast. That's 1 week of the month. We do Panda Off the Charts, which is the one that Bob Chiappardi is the one who brings us the great guest on that thing. We do a Panda Bubbling Under show, which is the top 10-ish songs that keeps growing that didn't quite make the top 20. And I'll tell you what, that's the place to find your tomorrow's hits today right there. Yeah. We do a couple of throwback shows. But yeah, we are, Ilan and I are working on a new concept. And it's part of the What's Hot in the Strip Clubs, but it's not going to be music related. It's more to the people involved in it. It's going to be called Behind the Curtain. Hopefully we'll get this started in about a month or so. But Behind the Curtain is going to be our show. It's going to be a daily show, which is going to be interesting for us. And they're all going to be around 5-6 minutes long. And we're just going to have different guests on. We'll have some adult film stars. We'll have some feature entertainers. Those are the like your typical... you've got your regular club entertainers, then you've got feature entertainers who travel the country. They're like pole champions, things like that. And we're going to try to get more of the behind the scenes scoop, not the generic, how long have you been doing this? What, that kind of thing. We're going to try to get some scoop on the show, maybe get some managers that'll tell us the good stuff. And that hopefully is going to start here pretty soon. Ilan actually came up with that idea. He bounced it past me, about a week or two, and we've been frantically putting stuff together. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I think, we positioned ourselves sort of as, the professionals and how we carry ourselves and how we represent the industry. And we want to do the same with other people. We really want to bring, there's a stigma and there's all these myths and legends about the strip club industry, and not that shady stuff doesn't go on, because of course it does. It's a really big industry. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, but we want to focus on the positive and the good things, and that it's the legitimate business that it is, without any of the getting into any of the gray area. And I think there's a lot of interesting stories and knowledge there that we can share that the average listener will find interesting as well, because I know I get questions from my non-strip club friends and family all the time about, well, how does that work? How do you make money? How does that operate? And so those sort of things will be interesting. And I did want to mention, for all the rock fans, we've been doing a decades remix show. So it'll be 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s rock remixes. We have 2 volumes of each decade where Dan and I pick our favorite remixes of classic tracks that we play in the clubs. I would love to hear these rock fans open their ears and give us a chance and listen to it and then tell us what they like or don't like about the remixes of their favorite songs. I think it's pretty cool. I went out of my way all my career to find remixes of Zeppelin and the Beatles because I couldn't play the originals. Number one, the sound quality is not as good in the original recording. So yeah, the remasters work better. But in a club setting, you need a beat the girls can dance to. And a lot of girls don't dance well to live drums anymore and rock. So when you have that steady 4/4 beat that the producers put in it, it makes it a different animal. But check those out as well. And I'm really excited about these 5 to 7 minute shows though, and something new we can add.
Hey, Chris, you listened to one of our recent shows, the one that just came out this week, and you had a question for Ilan, and I want to make sure that we get this question in there before the show ends. So go ahead. Let's bring up this subject. This is a good one.
I'm just busting his balls that he's a self-confessed Nickelback fan, and I just had to give him a hard time about that, just because Nickelback is everyone's favorite punching bag, and I made some jokes at their expense early on in my show, but more for entertainment purposes. I actually kind of like the new song, but no, I just had to give you a hard time about that.
Well, look, I'll take it on. I'm not scared. I'm an unabashed Nickelback fan. I like Creed too. I think the only people
we're done here. No, I'm just kidding.
I know. The only reason people hate them is because they got so successful. There's a resentment, especially now that rock's more underground now. That's like hating Poison or hating Kiss because they got so big, right? Now, I'm not a huge Kiss. I like Kiss. I respect it. But my favorite album actually is the Domino album. I think that's their best playing, the best sounds. There's so many great tracks on that album. But like, if you go back even before How You Remind Me, which is what really blew up Nickelback, their first track was, oh my God, I can't think of it. It came out in the 90s.
Figured You Out?
No, before all that stuff.
Leader of Men.
Yes, I love the Leader of Men. That's such a great track.
I actually like that song a lot.
Yeah, and a lot of their stuff. I think it's good straight up rock. Is it super heavy? No. Is it super commercial? Sure. But hell, that's the area I grew up. I grew up in the 80s. So I loved like Whitesnake and Dokken and Lynch Mob and Extreme and Badlands. Those are all my favorite bands, Living Colour. So like, I like a commercial hook. I don't. In fact, I'll challenge. So one thing I've noticed, a lot of these heritage bands, when they release records in the last 20 years, they produce it themselves. And I'll be honest, most of the records aren't as strong. They don't have someone dialing them in and getting the hooks right and just get everything right. So to me, a lot of their songs feel sort of unfinished. Even though I still like it, it's not as good as the produced, polished stuff, in my opinion.
Right. Well, that's
we got so yesterday I confirmed the latest Bush track and the latest Nickelback track.
Nice.
So I hopefully will have Gavin and what do you call it? And Chad on the
dude. If we get Chad on, that'd be sick. I would love to interview that guy.
They're in the Strip Joints program. And then Godsmack too. Close that
their
as
new
well.
song rocks.
Oh, Godsmack too.
And then you can, when you get Chad on, you can play the little clip of me saying that, and he can give me the finger on camera. So, no,
there you go.
For full disclosure, about 10 years ago, we did a stupid segment called Defend Your iPod on our show, where each of us took each other's iPod, and we scrolled through it to find the most embarrassing thing.
That's awesome.
And I had one Juice Newton song on my iPod. I kind of liked it. Doesn't mean I'm a massive fan. To this day, listeners give me shit about being a Juice Newton diehard fan. And I'm like,
dude,
I just roll with it now.
It's good music of every genre.
Morning train, you know.
I like the Angel of the Morning. Get over it, you know.
Hey, I like Bread, man. I got no problem with Bread or England Dan and John Ford Coley.
AM Gold, Yacht Rock. I love all that stuff.
Yes.
It's great to chill out too. Yeah, I like. I'll have to get you on the Decibel Geek live stream sometime because my co-host is a former strip club DJ himself. So I'm sure he could. You guys could talk shop about some of your
I would
past stories.
love to be on. And if you ever do a show on Badlands, that's my all-time. Them and Extreme. You hit those two bands or albums, I'm in.
All right, we'll have to do that. I think that would be a lot of fun. But and Bob,
there it is.
Here. Oh, it's sealed still too.
Come to daddy. Come to daddy.
I got to get it out to you, buddy.
Man, that's worth a few bucks.
Yeah.
That's not easy to
rarity.
find.
They stopped printing those babies.
We got to talk about why. That's some controversy, man. Talking about Juicy, you know why, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know why that album has been banned and whatnot?
Was it because of the Ray Gillen thing?
Yeah.
I had
HIV thing.
Yeah, it was a
Legal agreement.
Oh yeah. Well, I thought it was about his behavior after he got sick or something. I don't know.
Oh yeah. The families were not happy.
Yeah, that's a whole podcast episode alone.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to do it here, but
no, great record though. Although I met Eric Singer at a KISS convention in 1998 and made the dumb mistake of telling him I loved his drumming on the second Badlands album.
Oh, that's a mistake because they weren't the same once he left.
He doesn't.
The dynamics were gone.
He doesn't play drums on the second Badlands.
I know he doesn't. It's Eric Martin. Not Eric Martin. It's
Jeff Martin.
Jeff Martin. Sorry, Eric Martin's the singer for Mr. Big.
He was like, "Yeah, I didn't do that one." I was like, "Oh, okay." But yeah.
See, I like the first drumming. It's much more dynamic. I like Jeff Martin's, but he's more laid back.
I totally wasn't busting his balls. I thought he was the drummer. Yeah, he did, but he took offense to it. I was like,
I can imagine.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Oh, and anyway, but guys, it's been great having you on. Ilan and Danny will have you back on Decibel Geek on the live stream. Bob, I still want to do a show with you on my show to talk about Foundations Forum.
Yeah,
sure. Love to do that.
I think that'd be great.
I'll pull up a bunch of what do you call it, old photos and footage if you like, and we can.
That'd be great.
Fun talking about that.
Awesome, cool. Well,
All
thanks
right.
again, guys, and it's been a pleasure.
Chris, thanks for having us, man.
All right.